I mean, the team that we saw last night is a team that can win a championship. Not just win the East, win a championship. That team, Embiid at nearly full strength, Ben Simmons controlling the game with the ball on a string and hitting every three-point shot imaginable, not Ben Simmons, but his teammates. That's a team with that level of defense that is as good as any team in basketball. With that said, after 3 games, the closest a series can be is 2-1. And we do a weird thing in these playoffs where every single game, after game 1, what was a lot of the questions? Is it going to be a sweep? Are teams going to get swept? Like it was.
You have to get used to this television.
Right, exactly.
It's the question is, what about the end?
Right, and so I say all that to say this. There is no real criticism of Philly from last night. The game was close through 40 minutes. It was a 2-point game going into the fourth. And then they did, in the fourth quarter, what they did to Miami in the entire second half of game 1, which is blow them out and make it look more lopsided than it actually was. But 2-1 after 3, with the home team having a 2-1 lead, is about where you're supposed to be. I'm not ready to anoint Philadelphia as the Eastern Conference champions. What I am ready to say is this, Chris. Their best, we talk a lot about best versus best. Philly's best is, it's not quite the Rockets and Golden State's best, but it might be the next best we have in the league right now.
And the reason why we should look at Philadelphia and talk about them is because if there was a team that said, okay, there's a dark horse team, if there's a team going to surprise people in the playoffs, before the playoffs started, Philadelphia was that team. Doing a lot of talk shows, they were getting a lot of feedback. And we didn't know what they would look like with Joel Embiid. We have to take this in consideration. The guy hadn't played in the NBA game in a month. Now, this team has had great success. Now, their back was against the wall. They lost home court. But I knew that Dwayne Wade couldn't have that type of performance, franchise record, number of points off the bench. So with Joel Embiid coming back, even if they had unfortunately lost this game, I would have had a lot of confidence in them because it's him being back added to a team that has a tremendous amount of momentum. And now you can start to look at, because we were watching Philly during the season. We talked about Ben Simmons being Rookie of the Year, Joel Embiid. Oh, is he going to be able to stay healthy? We never looked at position by position how the team is put together. And now once you're into the playoffs, you can see, man, this team is dangerous. Because we saw with LeBron against the Pacers. But LeBron, as you go into the playoffs, people won't have an answer for LeBron. But if they got to the finals against Harden or Durant and Steph Curry, they can fight firepower with firepower. The only guy in the playoffs there is no answer for is Joel Embiid. And you talk about the good team surrounding them. They got shooters. They got Ben Simmons, who's playing, I believe, the best basketball of his rookie year. Like, they are a dangerous team.
And they've got, when you talk about the complementary pieces, 2 of them are guys they got from the Atlanta Hawks after the trade deadline. Bellinelli and Ilyasova. They were bought out by the Hawks. They went to Philadelphia, which, by the way, was a testament to how important it was that Philly had that good January that made them, because those guys go to playoff contending teams. Philadelphia had played well enough in January. Now you look at them post-Christmas, they have the best point differential in all of basketball. They are scoring more compared to their opponent in all of basketball. And when you look at the roster, do they have a dominant big? More than any team in the league other than maybe Anthony Davis? Yes. A floor general, Ben Simmons? Yes. Amazing shooting. The guys I mentioned plus Redick? Yes. And let's not forget, since Christmas, the number 2 defense in basketball. They are right now checking all of the boxes.
With the best defensive player.
Oh, and Joel Embiid, and one of the best defensive guards in Ben Simmons.
Joel Embiid returned from injury last night to make his playoff debut. He did not disappoint. Embiid finished with 23 points, 7 boards to help the Sixers beat Miami 128-108. It was actually closer than the score appeared to tell you. They take a 2-1 series lead. Now, Nick, how dangerous are the Sixers with Embiid back in the fold?
When they play like that, the Sixers' best game is as good as just about anybody's best game.
Do you think the Sixers are the only team in the East that can win a championship?
No, but I think they're the only team in the East that has a viable shot of beating LeBron. How about that? Because you're asking me is, do I think the Cavs can't win a championship? You asked in a little tricky manner,
tricky manner.
But no, I reject the premise that the Cavs are drawing dead to win a title, but on the Sixers, but I don't reject the premise.
There's nothing that we've seen from the Cavs that would have them in a championship conversation.
Right, we got a lot of time left. Don't worry about that. But on the Sixers, do I think the Sixers, if they get there, could present problems for whoever comes out of the West? If they're playing the way they played in the series and now they have Joel Embiid back, they check every box. Dominant big, amazing floor general, excellent shooting, top 5 defense. Like, they check every single box. And you saw it last night. They got to get through Miami now. It's only 2-1, but yeah, I mean, their best is outstanding.
Angelina, make sure you get this, all right? Make sure we chop it up and everything. I believe the Philadelphia 76ers are the best threat to win a championship out of the East. Better than Toronto, the #1 seed, and definitely better than Cleveland.
Well, we knew going into this series the Pelicans would have the best player on the court. But I think the expectation was the Blazers would have the next two. So it turns out the Pelicans have had the best player on the court, and the second best player on the court, and the third best player on the court. And when you've got the top 3 guys, that's how you're up 3-0. That's how you are able to dominate a series. And I was so impressed with what they did last night. Because when you take 2 games from Portland in Portland, and you know, man, we only need to win 1 of these home games, and we're up 3-1. Teams have come back from down 3-1, but it is exceptionally rare. To come out and in the first quarter win the basketball game, 36-20. The Pelicans won this series by 9 quarters. 2 games and a quarter, series over. Because you win game 3 to go up 3-0, it's over. They took it so seriously for a team that doesn't have a ton of experience. I know you're probably going to want to talk about the coach. Alvin Gentry's done a great job. This team has 4 above-average players. And those 4 players, Mirotic, the 2 guards, and Anthony Davis, are playing so well. Their lack of depth hasn't hurt them, and they've just crushed Portland.
A number of things have happened, and if you're going to talk about them, you can talk about the Brow as far as giving out credit. You also have to talk about Gentry as the coach. When Boogie Cousins got hurt, Alvin Gentry went to his staff, and they came up with a plan. The only way we're going to be able to maintain this success that we've had is we have to change our style. And they went to a fast pace, and they were going to get up and down the court more. Also, Anthony Davis told the coaching staff and his teammates that he was going to take a page from Russell Westbrook's book when he lost Kevin Durant. So his attitude was he was going to try to dominate the game. Not only on his offensive end, defensive end, he was going to try to control the game like Westbrook. So for me, for a younger player to kind of pick up on this, for a coaching staff to be able to make adjustments, and their calling card is defense. Right. All right? That's how they've gotten this commanding lead on Portland. Portland has not been able to get to the spots on the court. They have not been able to run their offense the way they typically run their offense. The Pelicans have made them uncomfortable, and that's how they have had this commanding lead. And, Nick, you made a great point about the first quarter with a young team, because when people think about the teams that are young, they don't look at, well, about the experience that Rondo has and some of the other players. They just look at the totality of them. So they are very, very young. For them to take command of that game in the first quarter shows a lot of maturity.
What about this Drew Holiday, Damian Lillard matchup? I don't think it's one that any of us saw coming, that they would be dominating by Drew Holiday, and all of a sudden the Blazers find themselves down 0-3.
Well, I want to talk about Lillard because he's one of my favorite players in the league. And Lillard burst onto the scene, his first playoff series ever. He shot nearly 50% from the field and hit something that is exceptionally rare in NBA history. A buzzer beater to win a series. A walk-off to win the series against Houston in round 1. Since then, that was the first round in 2014. Since then, he's played in half a dozen series. He is shooting less than 40% in those series. In this series, Damian Lillard is shooting 33%. He has been a guy that has not, post that first series of his career, we're now got a 4+ year sample size of that in the playoffs, because they're in the playoffs basically every year, where his game has not translated the way we would expect. Now, sometimes that's been because, well, the other teams, like if we stop Lillard, then we stop the Blazers. This year, McCollum's better. They have a healthy Nurkic, which they didn't have last year. He's just gotten his lunch eaten by Drew Holiday throughout this series. It's really disappointing.
And it's a bad matchup for him, because explosive as he is, he's herky-jerky off the dribble and change of pace. Drew Holiday is stronger, faster, and bigger than him. but also Drew can play up on him because the only team in the Western Conference that has a rim protector are the Pelicans. So it's a bad matchup for Portland because of Drew Holiday and his size. He's explosive, and if you get past him, he's got to deal with the brow before he can finish at the rim. And his shot selection just has been awful in this series. I mean, settling for too many 27, 28-footers.
And you're forgetting about Rudy Gobert. But aside from Rudy Gobert, the only team
absolutely.
with the rim protector. The one other thing about the Pelicans that maybe we should have seen this coming a little bit, they're 44-26 through 70 games this year. Then they're 5-7 to finish the year. And those, I know they still got the 3 seed, but it's not like they had the 3 seed locked up. They on the final day of the season, they could have fallen all the way, I think, to the 5 line. So they limped into the playoffs to a degree. They weren't able to turn it back on to where they were. And the Pelicans playing, they now have a better winning percentage without Boogie than with Boogie, which I never would have seen coming.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.